In this brief demo, I want to show you how you can configure in ADFS the claims provider trusts and the relying party trusts. So let's go ahead and bring up in Server Manager, now that we've installed ADFS that we can see listed here, and in fact if we click on it, we can just see status messages and some server information, events, and so on. But also in the tools, we now have this tool here, ADFS Management. So let's go ahead and launch that. It's an MMC tool. And as you can see, we can ADFS provides single sign-on for client configures. We can configure trust relationship, authentication policies, troubleshooting, and so on. So under service, we've got some basic information here about our endpoints and our certificates and our claim descriptions. But the trust relationships is where we want to be at the moment. So we use trust relationships to manage how claims are accepted and issued from this particular federation service. Okay, so they contain information about what we need. So if I look, for instance, at a claims provider trust, who's providing claims into this system? Well, currently Active Directory, because that's part of what we built as a part of Active Directory federation services. But we can add other claims provider trusts in here. Who else is going to provide claims? And so you can see this wizard will help you add a new claims provider. Maybe it's an LDAP directory, a database of some sort. Where are we retrieving claims from in order to provide them out through this ADFS service? And so if I start that wizard, we can see that we're going to get our data. We're going to select the particular data source. So we can import that, or we can enter claims provider trust data manually. And then we start to go through the process. We won't go through the whole thing, but we'll specify the URL, the connection, the certificates, and so on. Now, looking at Active Directory as an example, I can take a look. If I say edit claim rules, if Active Directory is a claims provider, then what are we getting from Active Directory? We can see a number of different rules here. We're getting things like the Windows account name, the primary SID, the group SID, and so on. UPN is in here. So the following transform rules specify the incoming claims that will be accepted from the claims provider, and then the outgoing claims that will be sent to the relying party trust. So for instance, if we see pass through all UPN claims, if I edit that, we can see the incoming claim type is UPN, lots of different claim types, and we're going to pass it straight on through. Or we can pass it through as a specific value. If I wanted to add a rule in here, we can pull stuff. You can see send LDAP attributes as claims. We can send group membership as claims. We can transform an incoming claim, send claims using a custom rule. So using just raw LDAP as an example, and every one of these choices you make has a nice little description here. But we can give it a name, some sort of descriptive name about what this rule is going to do. And then we specify, well, which attribute store? If we had multiple attribute stores, we only have Active Directory, so we'll choose that. And then we're going to map the LDAP attributes to the outgoing claim. So from LDAP as an example, let's say that we are pulling in the email address. Okay, great. We'll pull that in, but outgoing, we're going to call it something different. Outgoing, we're going to call it the UPN. So we're bringing in one form of LDAP attribute and we're transforming that into a UPN. So we would give it some sort of a descriptive name and click Finish. We've added a rule, and when I click OK, we've added a rule to that claims provider trust. Okay, so we can fully configure, we can pull from other claims providers and so on. Now likewise, we have relying party trusts. So if I come in here and I want to add a relying party trust, this would be a party that is going to actually, or a component that is actually going to trust our ADFS environment. It's an application, let's say. So if I click Start, we're going to see that we can import data about the relying party, or we can enter data about the relying party manually. Specify a display name of some sort that would be descriptive. It's going to be based on an ADFS, standard ADFS profile. We can specify optional token encryption certificates if we had them. Enable support for WS Federation passive protocol. or enable support for SAML 2.0 WebSSO protocol. And then the relying party trust identifier, which would be the application URL that gets created when you build out your applications to rely on this type of component, WS services. And so there would be a specific URL coming from that application. Now, once we configure that URL and plug that in here, we can configure things like multi-factor authentication, authorization rules, and so on. So these are a little bit about how we can go in and we can define where our claims provider trusts are coming from, our relying party trusts, who's going to rely on this particular system, and build out the details of that environment.